Picture yourself standing on the stone steps of a house you invested 12 years of your existence. A house where you organized fundraising events, where you smiled with people who disappeared the moment things got difficult, where you shared a bed with someone who stopped truly seeing you long before the lawyers got involved. Now, imagine holding two worn suitcases, everything you own compressed into luggage you purchased during a clearance sale because your bank accounts were frozen 3 weeks earlier. That was me. Hello, friends. Welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? That was Isabella Monroe on a Tuesday morning in September, walking away from everything I thought made me who I was. The photographers had already gathered. James made certain of that. Through the bay window on the second floor, I could see him with his arm around Natalie. She was 26, blonde, wearing the silk robe that used to be mine. They watched me leave like spectators at a performance. James had his phone out, probably messaging his attorney, probably celebrating. "Mrs. Monroe, Isabella, over here," a man with a camera thrusted toward my face. "How does it feel to lose everything?" I didn't respond. I couldn't. My throat was raw from the previous night's tears, and if I opened my mouth, I feared I would scream. So I continued walking, my heels clicking against the stone driveway, my hands trembling so severely I nearly dropped my suitcase twice. "Sources say your husband's legal team annihilated you in court. Can you comment? Isabella, did you sign a prenuptial agreement? Is it true you have nowhere to go?" That final question made me pause. Not homeless, not yet. I had reserved a motel room in Newark for 1 week. After that, I had no plan. My parents refused my calls. My sister Monica told me I had made my choices and disconnected before I could ask for assistance. My friends, James's friends really, had all vanished the moment the divorce papers were filed. I turned back one final time. James was still watching. He raised his coffee mug in a mock salute. Natalie laughed, her hand on his chest, and I felt something inside me fracture so profoundly I wondered if I would ever feel whole again. I climbed into the rideshare. The driver remained silent. He probably recognized me from the headlines. "Socialite left with nothing. The downfall of Isabella Monroe." That was yesterday's newspaper. Today's would likely be worse. The motel smelled like industrial cleaner and defeat. The bedspread had a cigarette burn in the corner. The wallpaper was peeling. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my reflection in the mirror above the dresser. I looked hollow. I looked like someone who had forgotten how to be human. I was 38 years old, and I had nothing. No money, no home, no career. I had abandoned my marketing position when James insisted his wife shouldn't work. No dignity, just 2 suitcases and a shattered sense of self. I spent the first 2 days in that room crying. I didn't eat. Sleep came in fragments. I kept replaying the divorce proceedings, the way James's lawyer portrayed me as a gold digger, a manipulator, someone who contributed nothing to the marriage. The judge believed every word. I walked away with nothing, not even spousal support. James's team had been too thorough. On the 3rd day, I forced myself to shower, to consume a granola bar from the vending machine downstairs, to contemplate what came next. I had no answers, but I knew I could not remain in that room forever. That's when she appeared. I was sitting in the motel parking lot, staring at my phone, debating whether to call my father one more time, when a black Mercedes pulled up beside me. The window descended, and a woman in her 50s, elegant and composed, leaned out. "Excuse me," she said. Her voice was smooth, professional. "Are you Isabella Monroe?" I froze. My first thought was reporter. My second was process server. I didn't answer. "I'm not here to harm you," she continued. "My name is Patricia Chen. I'm an attorney.
I've been searching for you for 3 days." "I don't have money for legal representation," I said flatly, "and I'm not signing anything else." "I'm not here about the divorce." She opened her car door and stepped out. She wore a charcoal suit, heels that probably cost more than my motel room, and carried a leather briefcase. "I'm here about your great-uncle, Tedero Monroe." I blinked. Tedero. I hadn't thought about him in years. He was my grandfather's brother, estranged from the family decades ago. I met him once, perhaps twice, at family gatherings when I was a child. He was quiet, intense, the kind of person who observed everyone from the corner of the room. What could a stranger possibly leave her, and why would he choose someone he barely knew? Isabella was about to discover that some inheritances come with conditions that change everything.
The words didn't register. I stared at Patricia, waiting for the punchline, for the catch that always comes. "Everything," she repeated. "His mansion in Manhattan, his collection of vintage automobiles, his investment portfolio. His estate is valued at $65 million, Isabella, and it's yours." I laughed, actually laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound that echoed across the parking lot. "That's impossible. I barely knew him." "He knew you." Patricia reached into her briefcase and extracted a folder. "He's been watching you for years. He knew about your marriage, your divorce. He knew what James did to you, and he wanted you to have a second chance." My hands were trembling again. I took the folder, opened it, and saw documents with my name typed across them. Legal papers, property deeds, account statements with numbers I couldn't process. "This is real," I whispered. "It's real." For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. Hope. Fragile, terrifying hope. "There's a condition," Patricia said. Of course there was. "You have to live in the mansion for 6 months, alone. You cannot sell anything during that time. And at the end of the 6 months, if you've honored these terms, the estate becomes yours completely." "That's it?" I asked. It seemed too simple. Patricia hesitated. "There's more, but I'll explain everything once you're settled. The important thing right now is, do you accept?" I looked at her, at the folder in my hands, at the motel behind me with its peeling paint and broken dreams. "Yes," I said, "I accept." The mansion was located in the Upper East Side, tucked away on a tree-lined street that felt suspended in time. It was massive, 4 stories of dark brick and iron gates, with windows that looked like eyes observing the world pass by. Patricia handed me the keys and told me she would be in contact. I stood on the front steps for a long time before I went inside. The interior was dim, heavy with the scent of old wood and closed rooms. The furniture was covered in white sheets, like ghosts waiting to be revealed. The floors were marble, the ceilings impossibly high. There were paintings on the walls, expensive ones, and a chandelier in the foyer that caught the afternoon light and scattered it across the room. It was beautiful, and it was terrifying. I walked through the rooms slowly, my footsteps echoing. The kitchen was enormous, untouched. The library was filled with books I would never read. The master bedroom had a 4-poster bed and a view of the city skyline. I sat on the bed and cried again. But this time, it wasn't despair. It was disbelief, gratitude, confusion. Why me? I found the answer an hour later in the study on the 3rd floor. There was a desk by the window, and on it, a sealed envelope with my name written in elegant script. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a letter. Isabella, you don't know me, not really, but I've known you your entire life. I've watched you grow into a woman of grace and strength, even when the people around you tried to diminish you. I've watched you endure a marriage that should have broken you. I've watched you survive a family that never deserved you. You're reading this because I'm gone, and because I want you to have what I built, not because you need saving, but because you deserve a foundation to rebuild on. But I need you to understand something. This inheritance isn't just money, it's a test. The people who hurt you, who ignored you, who took you for granted, they will come for this. They will try to take it from you. They will try to break you again. When they do, you'll have to decide who you really are. You were always stronger than they told you. I hope you remember that. Theodore. I read the letter 3 times. My chest felt tight, my vision blurred with tears. He'd been watching me all those years, and he'd seen something in me that no one else had. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back on the desk. Then I stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the city below. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something new, something dangerous, something mine, and I had no idea what was coming next. The first week in the mansion was silent, painfully, beautifully silent. I walked through the rooms like a stranger learning a new language. I uncovered furniture, opened curtains, let light pour into spaces that had been dark for too long. I found a closet full of women's clothing in the guest room, designer pieces from the 1940s and 50s, perfectly preserved. Theodore's mother's belongings, perhaps, or a lover's. I didn't know, but they fit me almost perfectly, and I wore them because my own clothes felt like costumes from a life I no longer recognized. I slept in the master bedroom. I cooked simple meals in the enormous kitchen. I read books from the library. I avoided mirrors because every time I looked at myself, I saw someone I was still learning to be. But the silence didn't last. On day 8, the doorbell rang. She should have known they would come. The people who never cared about her were about to show her exactly why Theodore left her everything, and why surviving the next 6 months might be the hardest thing she'd ever done.
I wasn't expecting anyone. Patricia had told me she'd check in after 2 weeks. I walked to the front door slowly, my heart already racing with an instinct I couldn't name. Through the peephole, I saw my sister, Monica. She was standing on the steps in a cream-colored coat, her hair perfectly styled, her expression carefully neutral. She looked like she'd come from brunch. She looked like she belonged in this neighborhood. I opened the door. "Isabella," she said, her voice soft, almost fragile. "Oh my God, Isabella!" Before I could respond, she threw her arms around me. I stood there frozen as she pressed her face against my shoulder and made a sound that might have been a sob. I'm so sorry I didn't call you back. I was scared. I didn't know what to say. But when I heard about Uncle Theodore," she pulled back, her eyes shining with tears, "I couldn't stay away anymore." I should have felt relief. I should have felt grateful. But all I felt was cold suspicion settling in my chest like ice. "How did you know where I was?" I asked. Monica blinked. "What?" "I didn't tell anyone I was here. Patricia said the inheritance was private. So how did you know?" Her face shifted just slightly. The tears were still there, but something behind them hardened. "I called Patricia's office. I told them I was your sister, that I needed to find you. They gave me the address." That was a lie. Patricia wouldn't give out my location. But I didn't say that. I just stepped back and let Monica inside. She walked through the foyer slowly, her eyes taking in everything, the chandelier, the paintings, the marble floors. She ran her fingers along the banister of the staircase. "This place is incredible," she said. "I can't believe Uncle Theodore had all this." "You never met him," I said. "Neither did you." "Not really." She turned to me, her expression careful. "But family is family, right? And he clearly wanted to take care of us." "He left it to me, Monica, not us." Her smile faltered. "Of course, I didn't mean—" She laughed lightly, like I'd misunderstood her. "I'm just saying it's amazing that you have this now, after everything with James. It's like fate, you know?" I didn't answer. I walked into the living room and she followed. "So, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to sell? You could get so much money for this place. You could travel, start over somewhere new." "I can't sell, not for 6 months." "Why not?" I hesitated. I hadn't told anyone about the conditions of the will, but Monica was my sister, and part of me, the part that still remembered us as children, playing in the backyard, sharing secrets, wanted to trust her. "It's part of the inheritance terms. I have to live here for 6 months, alone. If I break the conditions, I lose everything." Monica's eyes widened. "That's insane. Why would he do that?" "I don't know." She leaned forward, her voice dropping. "Isabella, you have to be careful. People are going to come after this. Lawyers, distant relatives, people claiming Theodore owed them money. You need to protect yourself." "I have Patricia." "Patricia's just a lawyer. She doesn't care about you, not like I do." Monica reached out and took my hand. Her skin was warm, her grip tight. "You need family right now. Let me help you." "Help me how?" "I don't know. Whatever you need. I can stay here with you, keep you company, make sure you're safe." There it was, the ask, the reason she was here. "I have to live here alone. That's the condition." Monica's face tightened. "That's ridiculous. You shouldn't have to be alone right now. You've been through so much." "I'll be fine." "Isabella." "I'll be fine." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she stood, smoothing her coat. "Okay," she said. Her voice was clipped now, the warmth gone. "But if you change your mind, call me. I'm here for you. I always have been." That was the second lie of the day. She left without hugging me goodbye. 2 days later, my father showed up. Gerald Monroe was a tall man with silver hair and a face that never smiled unless there was money involved. He worked in private equity, played golf with politicians, and treated his children like investments that hadn't paid off. I hadn't seen him since the divorce. He didn't come to court, didn't call, didn't send a message, but he was standing on my doorstep now, holding a bottle of expensive scotch. "Isabella," he said, "may I come in?" I should have said no, but I was raised to be polite, to accommodate, to say yes even when every instinct screamed otherwise. I let him in. He walked through the mansion the same way Monica had, his eyes cataloging value. He stopped in front of a painting in the hallway, an original Monet I'd learned from the inventory Patricia left me. "Theodore always had taste," he said. "I'll give him that." "You didn't come here to talk about art," I said. He turned to me, his expression unreadable. "No, I came to talk about family." "We haven't been family in a long time, Dad." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" My voice was sharper than I intended. "You didn't return my calls during the divorce. You didn't offer to help. You told me I should have been smarter, should have protected myself better. I was trying to teach you a lesson." "What lesson? That I'm on my own?" Isabella was about to learn that her father's visit was just the beginning, and that the real test Theodore had prepared for her was far more dangerous than she could have imagined. Gerald sighed, setting the scotch down on a side table. Isabella, I came here because I'm concerned. This inheritance, it's complicated. Theodore wasn't a stable man. He cut ties with the family decades ago. We don't know what kind of debts he left behind, what kind of legal trouble might come with this estate. Patricia vetted everything. It's clean. Patricia works for Theodore's interests, not yours. She works for me now. Gerald's jaw tightened. You're being naive. This kind of wealth comes with responsibilities, complexities. You don't understand the world you're stepping into. Then explain it to me. He looked at me like I was a child again. Theodore left you this money to make a point, to punish the family for rejecting him. But you're the one who's going to suffer for it. People will challenge the will. They'll dig into your life, your marriage, your mistakes. They'll try to prove you're unfit to inherit. And if you fight them alone, you'll lose. So what do you want me to do? Let me help you. Let me bring in my legal team. We'll set up a trust, protect the assets, make sure you're taken care of. And you'll take a percentage for your trouble? His face hardened. I'm your father. You haven't acted like it in years. I'm trying to now. No. I stood, my hands shaking but my voice steady. You're trying to control this, just like you've tried to control everything else in my life. But this is mine. Theodore left it to me. Not you, not Monica, me. Gerald stared at me for a long moment. Then he picked up the scotch and walked to the door. You're making a mistake, and when this falls apart, don't come crying to me. He left. The door closed behind him with a heavy thud, and I realized something. I didn't feel sad. I felt relieved. The third visitor came a week later. Nathan Monroe, my cousin, Theodore's great-nephew on the other side of the family. He didn't knock. He rang the doorbell 15 times in a row until I opened the door, furious. What the hell, Nathan? He was drunk. I could smell it on him before he even spoke. His shirt was untucked, his tie loosened, his eyes red-shot. You, he said, pointing at me. You think you're so special, don't you? Go home, Nathan. This should have been mine. He shoved past me into the foyer. Theodore was my great-uncle, too. I'm the oldest male in the family. This house, this money, it should have gone to me. He didn't want you to have it. Because of you. He spun around, his face twisted with rage. You poisoned him against us. You manipulated him. I barely knew him. Liar. He grabbed a vase from the side table and threw it against the wall. It shattered, pieces scattering across the marble floor. You're just like your mother, always playing the victim, always taking what doesn't belong to you. My heart was pounding. I backed toward the door, calculating how fast I could run, whether I could reach my phone. Get out, I said. I'm not going anywhere. This is my house. It's not, and if you don't leave, I'm calling the police. He laughed. Go ahead, call them. Tell them your family came to visit. They'll love that story. He took a step toward me. That's when I saw it. The drawer in the console table near the door was slightly open, and inside, barely visible, was the grip of a handgun. Theodore's gun. Patricia had mentioned it during the inventory. Old, probably not even loaded, but Nathan didn't know that. I moved quickly, pulling the drawer open and grabbing the weapon. It was heavier than I expected, cold and solid in my hand. Nathan froze. Get out, I said again. He stared at the gun, then at me. Then he started laughing. You don't have the guts. My finger rested near the trigger. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Try me. For a moment, we just stood there. The air between us felt electric,
dangerous. Then Nathan turned and walked out. I slammed the door behind him, locked it, and sank to the floor with the gun still in my hand. I sat there for an hour before I could move again. Patricia came the next morning. I called her after Nathan left, told her everything. She arrived with coffee and a folder of documents. "We need to talk," she said. We sat in the library. I was exhausted, my nerves frayed, my hands still trembling slightly. "There's something I didn't tell you," Patricia began, "about the conditions of the will." My stomach dropped. "What?" "The 6 months in the mansion, that's not just about you living here. It's about testing you. Theodore wanted to see if you could withstand your family, if you could resist their manipulation, their greed, their attempts to take what's yours." "Why?" Patricia hesitated. "Because Theodore knew what they were. He knew they'd come for you, and he wanted to make sure you were strong enough to fight back. What happens if I fail? If you give in, if you sign away any part of the estate, if you leave the mansion before the 6 months are up, if you let them manipulate you into changing the terms?" She paused. "The entire inheritance goes to charity. All of it." The stakes were higher than Isabella had imagined, and her family was about to make their most dangerous move yet.
I stared at Patricia, my throat tight. Does my family know this? They do now. I was legally required to inform them yesterday. So they're going to come after me even harder? Yes. I felt sick. Why didn't he just leave me the money? Why make it a game? Patricia's expression softened. Because he didn't want you to just survive, Isabella. He wanted you to become the woman he always believed you could be. Someone who doesn't bend. Someone who doesn't break. I'm not that person. You held a gun to your cousin's face last night. You sent him running. I think you're closer than you realize. I didn't know what to say to that. Patricia stood, handing me the folder. These are restraining order forms. I'll file them today against Nathan. But Monica and your father, they're going to be harder to deal with. They won't break the law. They'll just try to break you. How do I stop them? You survive. You stay here. You hold your ground. She paused at the door. And you remember that Theodore chose you for a reason. She left. I opened the folder. Inside were legal documents, contracts, letters, and at the bottom, another envelope with my name. I opened it. Isabella, if you're reading this, they've already started. Your family, the people who should have loved you unconditionally, but loved their pride more. I know them. I was one of them once, or at least I tried to be. But they rejected me, called me illegitimate, treated me like I didn't exist. So I built my own empire, and I've been watching them ever since. I've also been watching you, watching them do to you what they did to me. This inheritance isn't charity, it's a mirror. It will show you who they really are, and more importantly, it will show you who you really are. Don't let them win. Theodore. I folded the letter carefully. Then I walked upstairs, locked every door, and closed every curtain, because I knew they weren't done. And neither was I. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Nathan's voice. You don't have the guts. I kept seeing Monica's fake tears, my father's cold dismissal. I thought about calling someone, a friend, a therapist, anyone, but I had no one. So I got up, walked down to the library, and started searching through Theodore's books. I needed to understand him, needed to know why he chose me. I found it on the third shelf from the bottom, a photo album, leather-bound and worn. Inside were pictures I'd never seen before. Theodore as a young man standing outside this very mansion. Theodore with a woman who looked like my grandmother. Theodore holding a baby. And then, near the back, a photograph that made my breath catch. It was me. I was maybe 5 years old, sitting in a garden somewhere, laughing at something off camera. Someone had drawn a heart in the corner of the photo in red ink.
He'd been watching me since I was a child. I felt a chill run down my spine. The next page had more photos. Me at my high school graduation, me on my wedding day standing next to James, me at a charity gala 3 years ago. He'd been documenting my life. I should have felt violated, scared, but all I felt was seen. For the first time in my life, someone had been paying attention. I closed the album and held it against my chest. "Thank you," I whispered to the empty room. And somewhere in the silence, I imagined him answering back. The doorbell rang again at midnight. I was in bed, half asleep, when I heard it, a single sharp ring. I got up, walked to the window, and looked down at the front steps. No one was there, but on the doorstep, illuminated by the porch light, was a single white envelope. I went downstairs, my heart pounding, and opened the door carefully. The envelope was thick, expensive paper. My name was written on the front in elegant script. I opened it. Inside was a note, 2 sentences. "We know what you inherited, and we know how to take it from you." No signature. I looked up and down the empty street. Nothing. I closed the door, locked it, and stood in the dark hallway, the note trembling in my hand. They were coming for me, and I had 5 months left to survive. The threatening note changed everything. I stopped sleeping through the night. Every creak of the old house felt like footsteps. Every shadow looked like someone watching. I installed security cameras with Patricia's help, changed the locks, started keeping Theodore's gun loaded in the drawer beside my bed. I was learning to live like prey, but I was also learning to live like a predator. 3 weeks after the note arrived, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Isabella Monroe?" A woman's voice, professional, neutral. "This is Jennifer Walsh from the New York Observer. I'm doing a piece on contested inheritances in wealthy families. I'd love to get your perspective on—" I hung up. They called back. I blocked the number. Then came the emails, the social media messages, reporters digging into my divorce, my past, my relationship with Theodore. Someone had leaked the story, and now I was news again. Disgraced socialite inherits fortune, family cries foul. Mystery uncle leaves everything to estranged niece, legal battle brewing. I stopped reading after the 3rd article, but I couldn't stop them from being written. Patricia warned me this would happen. "They're trying to paint you as undeserving," she said during one of our weekly calls. "They want public opinion on their side before they make their legal move." What legal move? They're going to challenge the will, claim Theodore wasn't of sound mind when he wrote it, that you manipulated him somehow. I never even spoke to him. They'll find a way to make it look like you did. That's how these things work.
I wanted to scream, to throw something, to run, but I didn't. I stayed, because losing meant losing, and I was done losing. The real attack came on a Tuesday afternoon in November. I was in the kitchen making tea when the doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw 3 people, Nathan, Monica, and a man I didn't recognize in an expensive suit. I almost didn't open the door, but something in me, maybe anger, maybe curiosity, made me unlock it. "Isabella," Monica said. Her voice was different now, colder, no more fake warmth. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you." "Then listen." Nathan stepped forward. He looked sober this time, calculated. "This is Daniel Friedman. He's our attorney. We're filing a motion to contest the will." My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral. "On what grounds?" "Due influence," Daniel said smoothly. "Theodore Monroe was 83 years old when he wrote this will. He was isolated, ill, and clearly not thinking straight. You took advantage of his mental state to manipulate him into leaving you his estate. I never even met with him. Can you prove that?" I stared at him. "Can you prove I did?" Daniel smiled.
It was the smile of someone who'd already won. We have testimony from a former caretaker who says you visited Theodore multiple times in the months before his death, that you brought him gifts, spent hours alone with him, made promises. That's a lie. Is it? Because we also have phone records showing repeated calls between your number and his residence. My heart was pounding. I never called him. Then how do you explain the records? I couldn't, because I didn't know what records he was talking about, but I knew they were fabricated. They had to be. Monica stepped forward, her expression almost pitying. Isabella, this doesn't have to be ugly. We're willing to settle. You keep the mansion, 20% of the liquid assets, we split the rest. Everyone walks away happy. I'm not giving you anything. Then we'll take everything. Nathan's voice was low, threatening. You think you can fight us? You're broke, Isabella. Your ex-husband destroyed you. You have nothing except what Theodore left you, and we're going to prove you don't deserve it. Get off my property. This isn't your property, Nathan said. Not yet. I slammed the door in their faces. Then I collapsed against it, my hands shaking, my breath coming in short gasps. They were going to take it. They were going to take everything. I called Patricia. They were here, I said, my voice breaking. They're filing a challenge. They have fake evidence, fake testimony. Patricia, I don't know how to fight this. Yes, you do. Her voice was calm, steady. You know the truth, and I have something that will help you prove it. What? Come to my office tomorrow. There's something Theodore left for you, something I wasn't allowed to give you until your family made their move. What is it? You'll see. Patricia's office was in Midtown, a sleek high-rise with marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows. She met me in a private conference room. A large box sat on the table between us. Theodore knew they'd come after you, Patricia said. He knew they'd lie, cheat, fabricate evidence, so he prepared. She opened the box. Inside were files, dozens of them, photographs, legal documents, recordings. What is this? I asked. Theodore's insurance policy. Patricia pulled out a folder and handed it to me. He spent the last 10 years of his life documenting every interaction he had with your family, every phone call, every threat, every lie. I opened the folder. Inside were transcripts of phone calls between Theodore and Gerald from 2 years ago. In it, Gerald demanded money, threatened lawsuits, called Theodore a bastard who didn't deserve the Monroe name. There were emails from Nathan asking for loans he never repaid, making promises he never kept. There were letters from Monica, saccharine and manipulative, asking for help with her mortgage, her credit cards, her failed business ventures. They all came to him begging, and he refused them every time. He kept every piece of evidence because he knew that one day they'd try to destroy whoever he left his fortune to. I felt something fierce and hot rising in my chest. Why didn't he just cut them off completely? He did, but he wanted you to have the ammunition to do the same, to expose them if you needed to. Can we use this in court? Better. Patricia pulled out another folder. We can use it everywhere. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing. Patricia and I went through every document, every recording, every piece of evidence Theodore had collected. We built a case not just for the will's validity, but for my family's complete moral bankruptcy. And then we went public. I called a press conference. Patricia advised against it, said it was risky, but I didn't care anymore. I was done hiding. The room was packed, reporters, cameras, microphones everywhere. I sat at a table with Patricia beside me, a folder in front of me, my hands folded calmly even though my heart was racing. My name is Isabella Monroe, and I'm here to tell you the truth about my family. I opened the folder. For the past month, my family has accused me of manipulating my high uncle Theodore Monroe into leaving me my estate. They've claimed I took advantage of an elderly man, that I lied, that I don't deserve what he left me. I paused. They're lying. I pulled out the first document. This is a transcript of a phone call between Theodore Monroe and my father, Gerald Monroe, from 2 years ago. In it, my father threatens to contest Theodore's will if he doesn't receive a payout immediately. Theodore refused. Murmurs rippled through the room. I pulled out another document. This is an email from my cousin Nathan asking for $300,000 to cover gambling debts. Theodore refused. More murmurs. This is a letter from my sister Monica asking for money to save her business after she'd already borrowed and failed to repay over $500,000. I looked directly at the cameras. My family didn't care about Theodore when he was alive. They saw him as a wallet, a resource, and when he refused to fund their failures, they abandoned Theodore. The truth was finally coming out. But would it be enough to save everything Isabella had left to fight for?
I pulled out the final document, my hands steady now, my voice clear. This is Theodore's will. In it, he states clearly that he is of sound mind, that he has not been influenced or coerced, and that he is leaving his estate to me because I am the only member of this family who never asked him for anything. I closed the folder. I didn't manipulate him. I didn't trick him. I didn't even know him. But he knew me. He watched me endure a marriage that destroyed my sense of self. He watched my family turn their backs on me when I needed them most, and he decided I deserved a second chance. I stood. My family is trying to take that from me, not because they loved Theodore, not because they deserve his legacy, but because they can't stand the idea that someone they look down on might rise above them. I paused, looking at every camera in the room. I'm not giving them anything, and I'm going to fight them with everything I have. The room erupted with questions, but I walked out. Patricia beside me, my head held high. The story went viral. Within 24 hours, every major outlet had picked it up. Opinion pieces flooded in, some supporting me, some calling me opportunistic, but the evidence was undeniable. My social media accounts, which I had abandoned months ago, exploded with messages, thousands of them. Most were supportive, some were vicious. I stopped reading after the first 100. Monica called me. I didn't answer. Gerald sent an email. I deleted it without reading. Nathan tried to show up at the mansion. The security company I had hired turned him away. And then, a week later, their lawyer withdrew the challenge to the will. Patricia called me with the news. "They don't have a case anymore," she said. "The evidence you presented destroyed their credibility. It's over, Isabella. You won." I should have felt relief, joy, victory, but all I felt was exhausted. "There's one more thing," Patricia said. "Can you come to the office? There's something else Theodore left for you." The conference room looked the same as before, but this time there was a single envelope on the table. "Theodore left instructions that you were only to receive this after the legal battle was resolved," Patricia said. I picked up the envelope. My name was on the front in Theodore's handwriting. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a letter and a photograph. The photograph was old, faded. It showed a young woman with dark hair and bright eyes standing in a garden, laughing. She looked like me. I turned it over. On the back, in faded ink, Elena, 1965. My mother. I looked at Patricia. "I don't understand." She took a breath. "Theodore wasn't just your great-uncle, Isabella. He was your biological father." The room tilted. "What?" She continued gently. "Your mother and Theodore had a brief relationship before she married Gerald. She got pregnant. Theodore wanted to be part of your life, but your mother refused.
She was young, scared of scandal. She married Gerald quickly, passed you off as his daughter. Theodore agreed to stay away, but he never stopped watching over you. I couldn't breathe. Does Gerald know? He's always known. That's why he never loved you the way he should have. You weren't his blood. You were a reminder of your mother's betrayal. Tears streamed down my face. Patricia continued gently. Theodore couldn't be your father openly, but he made sure you'd never be without a foundation. This inheritance isn't just money, Isabella. It's his way of finally taking care of you. I opened the letter, my hands shaking. Isabella, if you're reading this, you've survived them. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I couldn't be your father the way I wanted to be. I'm sorry you grew up feeling unwanted, unloved. I'm sorry I watched from the shadows instead of stepping into the light. But I saw you. Every moment, every struggle, every triumph. You were never alone. This inheritance is yours because you earned it. Not through blood, not through manipulation, but simply through the act of surviving in a family that never deserved you. Build something beautiful with it. Build something that matters. And know that I loved you, always. Theodore. I folded the letter carefully and pressed it against my chest. For the first time since James destroyed my life, I felt whole. 6 months passed. I stayed in the mansion for the full term, honoring Theodore's conditions, and when the clock ran out, I didn't leave. I transformed the space into something new. The first floor became offices, the second floor conference rooms, the third and fourth floors remained private, my sanctuary. I launched Monroe Ventures, a holding company dedicated to funding startups led by women who'd been overlooked, dismissed, told they weren't enough. Women like me. Within a year, we'd funded 15 companies. Within 2 years, 3 of them had gone public. I appeared on the cover of Forbes, then Fortune, then Bloomberg Businessweek. How did you do it? An interviewer asked during a podcast. How did you go from losing everything to building an empire? I smiled. I stopped waiting for permission to take up space. Isabella had survived the test, but her greatest challenge was still ahead. The man who destroyed her was about to come crawling back.
One morning, I was reviewing investment proposals when my assistant buzzed in. "There's someone here to see you. He says it's important." "Who?" "James Monroe." My blood ran cold. "Send him in." James walked into my office looking diminished. His suit was off the rack. His shoes were scuffed. He'd aged in the 2 years since I'd seen him. Lines around his eyes, gray in his hair. He looked small. "Isabella," he said, "you look incredible." I didn't stand, didn't smile. "What do you want, James?" I wanted to apologize for everything. The divorce, the lawyers, the way I treated you. I was cruel. I was wrong. "Yes, you were." He shifted uncomfortably. "I've been following your success. You've done amazing things. I always knew you were capable of—" "More than what?" "More than—" He trailed off. "More than being your accessory?" He flinched. "I deserve that." "You deserve a lot more than that." Silence stretched between us. "I'm in trouble, Isabella." His voice dropped. "The business failed. Natalie left. I'm drowning in debt. I need help." There it was, the real reason he came. "You want money." "A loan. I'll pay you back, I swear." I leaned back in my chair and studied him. This man who'd humiliated me, who'd torn apart my life, who'd made me believe I was worthless. And now he was begging. "No," I said simply. His face crumpled. "Isabella, please, I have nowhere else to turn."
You should have thought about that before you destroyed me. I made a mistake. You made a choice. I stood. And now I'm making mine. Get out of my office, James, and don't come back. He stared at me, stunned. Then he turned and walked out. I watched him go, waiting for the satisfaction, the vindication. But all I felt was indifferent. He didn't matter anymore. That evening, I stood in Theodore's study, my study now, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. On my desk was the morning's Wall Street Journal. My face was on the front page of the business section. The headline read, "Isabella Monroe, the Phoenix of Wall Street." Below it, they'd included a quote from my recent interview. "Some build empires with power. I built mine with purpose." I traced my fingers over the words. Behind me, on the wall, I'd framed Theodore's final letter, and beside it, the photograph of my mother. I thought about Gerald, who never loved me, about Monica, who envied me, about Nathan, who hated me, about James, who discarded me. I thought about every person who told me I wasn't enough, and I smiled, because I'd proven them all wrong, not by becoming like them, not by taking revenge, but by building something they could never touch. I walked to the window and pressed my hand against the glass, feeling the cool surface against my palm. Somewhere out there in the city that had almost destroyed me, there were women who felt the way I once did, broken, discarded, invisible. And I was going to find them. I was going to give them what Theodore gave me, not just money, but permission. Permission to take up space, permission to fight back, permission to build something beautiful from the ashes of their old lives. I picked up my phone and called Patricia. "I want to start a foundation," I said, "for women leaving abusive marriages, legal support, financial assistance, housing." "That's a beautiful idea. I'm calling it the Elena Monroe Foundation, after my mother." Patricia's voice softened. "Theodore would love that." I looked at his letter on the wall. "I know," I said. 5 years later, I sat in the same study, now filled with photographs of the women we'd helped, success stories, new beginnings. On my desk was a handwritten note from one of them. "You saved my life, not with money, with hope. Thank you for showing me I could be more than what they said I was." I folded it carefully and added it to the box where I kept them all. Outside, the sun was setting over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who stood on those mansion steps with 2 suitcases and a broken heart. She felt like a stranger now. I'd buried her, and from her ashes, I'd become someone new, someone stronger, someone freer, someone who didn't need permission to exist. I stood and walked to the window one last time, looking out at the city I'd conquered, and I whispered the words I wished someone had told me years ago. You were always enough. The city lights flickered on one by one, like stars, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. I didn't inherit just money. I inherited the one thing my family never gave me, the permission to be free. And I was never giving that back. But Isabella's story was far from over. The foundation she built would change thousands of lives, and one unexpected letter would reveal a secret that changed everything. Her greatest challenge was still ahead. The man who destroyed her was about to come crawling back.
3 years after launching the Elena Monroe Foundation, we'd helped over 500 women escape abusive situations. Each story was different, but they all shared the same thread. Women who'd been told they were nothing, who'd been convinced they couldn't survive alone, who'd lost themselves in relationships that consumed them. I knew their stories,
because I'd lived one. Every Monday morning, I met with Patricia and our foundation director, Sarah Chen, to review new applications. We sat in the conference room on the second floor, surrounded by windows overlooking the city. "We have 23 new applications this week," Sarah said, spreading folders across the table. 12 are urgent situations, women who need to leave immediately. I picked up the first folder. Inside was a photograph of a woman with a black eye, her gaze fixed somewhere beyond the camera. Her name was Rebecca Martinez, 32 years old, 2 children. Her husband had broken her arm 3 times. "She needs housing, legal representation, and child care support while she gets back on her feet," Sarah continued. "Estimated cost $150,000 over 2 years. "Approved," I said, without hesitation. Patricia made a note. We went through 11 more urgent cases that morning. By the time we finished, I'd approved over $1 million in immediate support. "You know," Patricia said as we gathered the folders, "not everyone would do this. Most wealthy people donate to charity for tax breaks or publicity. You're actually changing lives." "Theodore changed mine. I'm just paying it forward." But the foundation brought something I hadn't anticipated: attention. Not all of it was good. The backlash started with an opinion piece in the conservative newspaper, "Is Isabella Monroe's Dangerous Message to Women?" The article argued that the foundation encouraged women to destroy families and abandon their commitments. It painted me as someone who profited from broken marriages. Then came the social media campaigns. Hashtags like "Stop Isabella Monroe" and "Save Marriages" trended for days. People I'd never met accused me of hating men, of promoting divorce, of destroying traditional values. Conservative pundits invited me on their shows so they could attack me on air. I declined every invitation. But I did write a response, published in the New York Times. "I don't encourage women to leave their marriages. I provide resources for women who've already made that decision, often the hardest decision of their lives. I don't destroy families. I help women escape situations where they're being destroyed. If my foundation threatens you, ask yourself why. Ask yourself what kind of marriage requires trapping someone who wants to leave." The piece went viral. Supportive messages flooded in by the thousands, but so did the death threats. "You need to increase security," Patricia insisted after the 3rd threatening letter arrived at my office. "These people are dangerous." "I'm not hiding. Theodore didn't hide from his family. I'm not hiding from mine, or anyone else." But I did hire more security, and I installed panic buttons in my office and home. Because Theodore had taught me something important: being strong doesn't mean being reckless. The turning point came during a speaking engagement at Columbia University. I'd been invited to talk about entrepreneurship and second chances. The auditorium was packed, over 1,000 students, faculty, and members of the public. I was halfway through my speech when a group of protesters stormed the stage. They carried signs, "Marriage Wrecker" and "Isabella Monroe Hates Families." Security moved in immediately, but I held up my hand. "Wait," I said into the microphone. Everyone froze. I looked at the protesters, all men, all angry, all convinced they knew my story better than I did. "You want to talk? Let's talk." I gestured to the podium. "Who wants to go first?" A man in his 40s stepped forward. He was red-faced, shaking with rage. "You're destroying society. You're making women think they can just abandon their families whenever things get hard. Marriage is a commitment. It's sacred." "I agree. Marriage should be sacred. But tell me, is it sacred when someone is being beaten? When someone is being controlled, isolated, financially abused? Is it sacred when someone is living in fear every single day? That's not what all these women are experiencing." "How do you know?" I interrupted. "Have you met them? Have you sat with them while they showed me the bruises they hide under their clothes? Have you listened to them explain how they're not allowed to have their own bank accounts, their own friends, their own lives?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The foundation doesn't help women who are having a hard time. We help women who are in danger, women whose partners have convinced them they're worthless, that they can't survive alone, that no one will believe them if they speak up. I stepped closer to the edge of the stage. I was one of those women. My ex-husband destroyed my confidence, my career, my sense of self. When we divorced, I had nothing, not because I was incompetent or lazy, but because he made sure I had nothing. The auditorium was silent now. So when you call me a marriage wrecker, understand what you're really saying. You're saying that women should stay in situations that destroy them. You're saying that commitment matters more than safety. You're saying that we should suffer in silence to maintain an image of family unity. I paused. I refuse to accept that. And I refuse to apologize for helping women who refuse to accept that too. The audience erupted in applause. It started with a few people, then spread through the entire auditorium. Students rose to their feet. Even some of the protesters looked uncertain now. The man who had spoken stepped back, his sign lowered. I returned to the podium and finished my speech. But that night, lying in bed, I realized something. This was bigger than me now, bigger than Theodore's inheritance, bigger than revenge or redemption. This was about creating a world where women didn't need saving because they'd never been taught they were helpless in the first place. Isabella's mission was expanding beyond her imagination, but one phone call was about to reveal a connection to her past that would change the Foundation's future forever.
The call came on a Thursday afternoon. I was in my office, reviewing quarterly reports for Monroe Ventures, when my assistant buzzed in. "There's a woman on the phone," she said. "She won't give her name, but she says it's about Theodore Monroe. She says it's urgent." I hesitated. It had been years since Theodore's death, and most people who claimed to know him were either scam artists or distant relatives hoping for money. "Put her through," I said, anyway. The line clicked. "This is Isabella Monroe." "Miss Monroe?" The woman's voice was older, careful. "I'm Margaret Winters. I was Theodore's housekeeper for 20 years. "I didn't know Theodore had a housekeeper." "He was very private. I lived in the carriage house behind the mansion. I left 6 months before he died." She paused. "I'm calling because I have something that belongs to you, something Theodore wanted you to have, but only when you were ready." "What is it?" "I can't explain over the phone. Can you meet me?" Every instinct told me this could be a trap, but something in her voice, the genuine hesitation, the weight of a secret, made me curious. "When and where?" We met at a small cafe in Brooklyn, far from Manhattan's spotlight. Margaret Winters was in her 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a bun and kind eyes that had seen too much. She carried a leather satchel, worn and weathered. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as we sat down. "I've been following your work. Theodore would be proud." "You said you have something for me?" She nodded slowly. "Before I give it to you, I need to tell you a story." She ordered tea, her hands shaking slightly as she wrapped them around the cup. "I worked for Theodore for 20 years. I saw him at his best and his worst. I knew about his family, how they rejected him, used him, abandoned them." "Patricia told me some of this." "Did she tell you about the others?" I frowned. "What others?" Margaret reached into her satchel and pulled out a folder. "Theodore didn't just watch you, Isabella. He watched other women too. Women in your family. Women in situations like yours." She opened the folder. Inside were photographs, women I didn't recognize at first, but as I looked closer, I saw the resemblance.
The dark hair, the eyes, the way they held themselves. "These are Theodore's daughters," Margaret said quietly. "Not legally, not publicly, but biologically." My breath caught. "How many?" "4 that I know of, maybe more." Margaret pulled out individual files. "Catherine Blake lives in Boston. She's a lawyer who specializes in domestic violence cases. Theodore sent money anonymously to put her through law school." She pulled out another. "Olivia Chen, San Francisco. She runs a shelter for homeless women. Theodore funded it secretly for years." Another. "Rachel Foster, Chicago. She started a crisis hotline for abuse victims. Theodore was her largest anonymous donor." I stared at the files, my mind reeling. "He was helping them," I whispered. "He was preparing them," Margaret corrected. "Just like he prepared you. He watched these women struggle and gave them just enough help to succeed on their own, because he wanted them to be strong, to be independent." "Why didn't he tell me about them?" Margaret pulled out one more document, a letter in Theodore's handwriting. "He wanted you to find them after you'd built something of your own, after you'd proven you didn't need him or his money to be who you were meant to be." I opened the letter with trembling hands. "Isabella, if Margaret is giving you this letter, it means you've succeeded. It means you've taken what I left you and built something meaningful. I want you to know that you're not alone. You have sisters, not in name, but in blood, in purpose. I failed them as a father, just as I failed you. I couldn't be there openly. I couldn't claim them, but I tried to give them what I gave you, a foundation. Now I need you to do something I couldn't. Find them, bring them together, tell them the truth, and build something bigger than any one person could build alone. Theodore." I looked up at Margaret, tears streaming down my face. "Does he want me to split the inheritance?" "No," Margaret smiled. "He left separate provisions for each of them, smaller than yours, but enough. This isn't about money, Isabella. It's about family." "They're my sisters?" "Half-sisters, technically, but yes." I looked at the files again. Catherine, Olivia, Rachel, and one more I hadn't noticed. "Who's this?" I asked, pointing to the last file. Margaret's expression grew somber. "That's Lily Monroe. She's the youngest, only 23. She paused. "She's in an abusive marriage. Theodore died before he could help her, before he could tell her who she really was." My blood ran cold. "Where is she?" "Right here in New York. Her husband is Andrew Dawson, tech executive, very wealthy, very controlling. Lily's tried to leave twice. He found her both times." I stood up, my mind already racing. "We need to help her." "That's why I'm here. Theodore's last request was that you find her, save her, before it's too late." I gathered the files, my hands steady now, my purpose clear. "I'll find her," I said, "and then I'll find the others." Margaret smiled. "He knew you would." Isabella just discovered she wasn't alone and that her greatest mission was about to bring together a family that could change everything. But first, she had to save a sister she'd never met from a danger she knew all too well.
Finding Lily Monroe was easier than I expected. Andrew Dawson wasn't hiding her. He was controlling her so completely that hiding wasn't necessary. I spent 3 days gathering information. Andrew was exactly what Margaret had described, a tech executive worth an estimated $200 million, known for his visionary leadership and charitable donations. On the surface, he was perfect, but I knew better.
I'd been married to a man like him. Patricia helped me access court records. Lily had filed 2 restraining orders in the past 3 years. Both were withdrawn within weeks. The pattern was textbook. File, get pressured, withdraw, return. We need to be careful, Patricia warned during one of our planning sessions. If we approach her directly and she tells him, he could move her somewhere we can't find her, or worse. So what do? We wait for an opportunity, and we make sure that when she's ready to leave, she can disappear completely. The opportunity came 2 weeks later. Sarah from the foundation called me at midnight. We have a walk-in at the emergency shelter. She won't give her name, but she matches Lily Monroe's description. Dark hair, 23, bruises on her arms. She says her husband is looking for her. I'm on my way. The shelter was in Queens, a nondescript building that could have been an office complex. We kept the location secret for exactly this reason. Sarah met me at the door. She's in room 7. She's terrified, Isabella. She keeps asking if we can really keep her safe. I knocked softly before entering. The woman sitting on the bed looked so much like the photograph Margaret had shown me, but thinner, more fragile. Her left eye was swollen shut. Her lip was split. Her hands trembled as she held a cup of tea. "Hi," I said softly. "I'm Isabella." She looked up at me with her one good eye. "I've seen you on TV. You help women like me." "I do, and I'm going to help you." "He'll find me. He always finds me." "Not this time." I sat down beside her, careful to maintain distance. "What's your name?" She hesitated. Lily Dawson." "Your real name," I said gently, "before you married him." "Lily Monroe," her voice broke. "But I don't know why I kept it. I'm nobody. I don't have family. I don't have anyone." My heart ached. "That's not true." She looked at me confused. "Lily, I need to tell you something about your father." Over the next hour, I told her everything. About Theodore, about the inheritance, about the photographs and the letter, and the 3 other women who shared our blood. She listened in silence, tears streaming down her face. "I don't understand," she finally said. "Why didn't he help me before? Why didn't he tell me?" "He died before he could, but he made sure I'd find you. He made sure he wouldn't be alone." "I've been alone my whole life." "Not anymore." I took her hand carefully. "You have me. You have sisters, and you have resources that will make sure Andrew Dawson never touches you again." "He has lawyers. He has money. He told me if I ever tried to leave again, he'd make sure I ended up in prison. He said he'd fabricate evidence that no one would believe me." "I believe you, and I have lawyers too, better ones." For the first time, something like hope flickered in her eyes. Patricia worked quickly. Within 48 hours, we had a new identity and passport for Lily, a restraining order with teeth. Patricia knew judges who actually enforced them. A forensic accountant digging into Andrew's finances. We found 3 offshore accounts he'd hidden during their marriage. Evidence of his abuse compiled from medical records, photographs, and testimony from witnesses we had tracked down. But we needed something more. We needed to destroy his power over her completely. "We need to go public," I said during a strategy session with Patricia and Sarah. "That could backfire," Patricia warned. "Andrew has PR firms. He'll spin this as a bitter ex-wife trying to destroy him. Lily isn't his ex-wife yet, and she won't be alone." I looked at both of them. "I'm going to stand beside her. We're going to tell her story together." Sarah leaned forward. "Are you sure? This will bring massive attention to both of you." "I'm sure.
because if we don't, he'll hunt her forever. We need to make him toxic. We need to make sure that anyone who might help him knows exactly who he is." The press conference was scheduled for the following Monday. Lily was terrified but determined. "What if no one believes me?" she asked the night before as we rehearsed her statement. "They'll believe you," I said, "because you're not just telling your story, you're showing them who you really are." The morning of the conference, we arrived at the foundation's headquarters together. The room was packed with reporters, cameras, advocates. I went first. "My name is Isabella Monroe. 5 years ago, I stood in front of cameras like these to defend my inheritance against a family that tried to destroy me. Today, I'm here to introduce you to someone who matters more than any inheritance ever could be." I gestured to Lily, who stood and walked to the microphone beside me. "My name is Lily Monroe, and I'm a survivor of domestic violence." She told her story, the isolation, the control, the violence, the 2 times she'd tried to leave, the threats that brought her back. And then she said something that made the entire room go silent. "I stayed because I thought I had no one. I thought I was alone in the world. But 3 days ago, I learned something that changed everything. I learned that I have a sister who survived what I survived, and she's standing beside me now to make sure I never have to face this alone again." She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Andrew Dawson told me I was nothing, that no one would care if I disappeared. But he was wrong." She turned back to the cameras. "I matter. My life matters, and I'm not going back." The room erupted with questions, but I put my arm around Lily and led her out. Behind us, I could hear reporters already making calls, already writing stories. By evening, Andrew Dawson's name would be destroyed, and Lily would finally be free. Lily was safe, but Isabella's family was still incomplete. 3 more sisters were out there, building their own legacies, and it was time to bring them all together.
Finding Catherine Blake was surprisingly difficult for a prominent attorney. She'd built her career on protecting abuse survivors, but she'd also built walls around herself that rivaled any I'd ever seen. I finally reached her through her law firm in Boston. "Ms. Blake doesn't take personal calls," her assistant said. "Tell her it's about Theodore Monroe. Tell her Isabella Monroe is calling. She'll understand." There was a long pause. Then, "Hold, please." Catherine came on the line 2 minutes later. Her voice was controlled, professional, but I could hear the tremor beneath it. "How did you know about Theodore?" "We need to meet. There are things you don't know. Things about him, about me, about you." "I know who you are. I followed your case against your family. Impressive work." "This isn't about that case. This is about our father." Silence. "Theodore Monroe was your father too, Catherine, and you have 3 sisters. I'm one of them." We met in Boston 3 days later. Catherine was exactly what I had imagined from her photographs. Sharp, composed, guarded. She wore a perfectly tailored suit and had the bearing of someone who'd fought for every inch of ground she'd gained. We sat in a private room at her law firm. I'd brought Patricia and Margaret with me. I'd also brought the files. Catherine examined everything in silence. The photographs, the letters, the DNA reports Theodore had commissioned years ago. "He knew," she finally said. "All this time, he knew about me? He knew about all of us. He watched us. He helped us when he could, but he couldn't claim us publicly." "Why not?" "Because he was labeled illegitimate by his own family, because society in his time wouldn't have accepted it, because he was ashamed." I leaned forward. "But before he died, he tried to make it right. He left us each something, not just money, but a mission to find each other, to build something together." Catherine's eyes were wet, but she didn't cry.
I spent my whole life thinking I was alone. My mother never told me who my father was. She died when I was 16. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college, through law school. I built everything on my own. You did, and Theodore watched you do it. He was proud of you, Catherine. How do you know? I pulled out another letter. Because he wrote this for you. She read it silently. When she finished, she carefully folded it and placed it in her briefcase. What do you want from me? I want you to meet your sisters. I want us to build something together, something bigger than any of us could build alone. I work alone. So did I, until I realized I didn't have to anymore. Catherine studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. Tell me about the others. Olivia Chen was easier to find. She was running her shelter in San Francisco, openly, proudly. When I called and explained who I was, she laughed. I knew there had to be others. Theodore was too careful, too strategic. He wouldn't put all his hope in one person. Will you come to New York? Will you meet us? When? Next week. I've found 3 of us. There's one more, Rachel Foster in Chicago. I know Rachel, Olivia said. We've worked together on national campaigns. We're friends. My heart skipped. She knows you? Not that we're related, but we've collaborated for years. This is incredible. Rachel was the hardest to convince, not because she didn't believe me, but because she'd spent years protecting herself from disappointment. I don't need a family, she said when I finally got her on the phone. I don't need some dead man's guilt money. I built my hotline from nothing. I did that. I know you did, and Theodore knew it too. He didn't give you money to save you. He gave it to you because he believed in what you were building. He never told me he was my father. He couldn't, but he tried to make it right before he died. By leaving me breadcrumbs, by watching from the shadows. Her voice cracked. I needed a father when I was 8 years old and my mother's boyfriend was beating her. I needed one when I was 15 and we were homeless. Where was he then? He was watching, helping when he could without revealing himself. And he was ashamed, Rachel, ashamed that he couldn't do more, that he couldn't be the father any of us deserved. That's not good enough. I know, but we can't change the past. We can only decide what we do with what he left us. Silence. Olivia's coming. Catherine is coming. Lily is here with me. We're meeting next week. I'd like you to be there. Why? What's the point? Because you're our sister, and maybe together we can build the family none of us had growing up. They all came. Catherine flew in from Boston, her guard still up, but her curiosity evident. Olivia came from San Francisco with warmth and open arms, ready to embrace this strange new reality. Rachel arrived last, from Chicago, her skepticism written across her face. We met at the mansion, in Theodore's library, where it all began. I'd arranged the room carefully, 5 chairs in a circle. On a table in the center, I'd placed Theodore's letters to each of us, the photographs, and the final document he'd left, his vision for what we could build together. When everyone was seated, I looked at each of them. My sisters, women I'd never known existed until weeks ago. Women who shared my blood, my pain, my purpose. Thank you for coming. I know this is strange. I know it's painful, but Theodore wanted us to have something he never had. A family that wasn't built on obligation or manipulation or blood alone. A family built on choice. I opened the final letter and began to read. The sisters were finally together, but Theodore's final letter contained a challenge that would test whether they could truly become the family he'd dreamed of.
Theodore's final letter was addressed to all of us. To my daughters, if you're reading this together, it means Isabella found you. It means you've chosen to give each other and me a chance I don't deserve.
I failed each of you as a father. I watched from the shadows when I should have stood in the light. I gave money when you needed presence. I helped from a distance when you needed someone to fight beside you. I can't undo those failures, but I can offer you something else. Each of you has built something meaningful. Catherine, your legal practice has freed hundreds of women from dangerous situations. Olivia, your shelter has housed thousands who had nowhere else to go. Rachel, your crisis hotline has saved countless lives. Isabella, your foundation has transformed how we support survivors. And Lily, you survived something that should have destroyed you. You are each powerful, alone, but imagine what you could do together. I'm leaving you more than money. I'm leaving you a network. Properties in 12 cities, investments in companies that align with your missions, connections to people who can help you scale your work. But there's a condition. You must work together, not as competitors, but as collaborators. You must build something unified, something that lasts beyond any one of you. If you choose not to work together, the assets will be divided equally among you, and you'll never hear from me again. But if you choose to build something together, you'll have access to everything I've prepared. An empire dedicated to helping women like your mothers, like yourselves, like the women you serve every day. The choice is yours. Your father, who loved you from afar and hoped you could do what he couldn't, find the courage to build a real family. Theodore. I finished reading and looked up. 4 pairs of eyes stared back at me. Rachel spoke first. He's manipulating us from the grave. One last test, one last condition. Maybe, Catherine said, or maybe he's giving us an opportunity. An opportunity wrapped in guilt, Rachel shot back. I built my hotline with nothing. I don't need his blood money to validate my work. None of us need validation, Olivia said gently, but think about what we could do with resources like this. I turn away 3 women for every one I can house. The wait list at my shelter is 6 months long. 6 months that women spend in danger because I don't have enough beds, enough funding, enough staff. So we take his money and pretend we're a happy family? Rachel's voice was sharp. No, we take his money and build something real. We don't have to pretend to be something we're not. We just have to choose to work together. Doing what? Lily asked quietly. It was the first time she had spoken since we started. I'm not like the rest of you. I haven't built anything. I just survived. Catherine turned to her. Surviving takes more strength than people realize. And your story reached thousands of women who needed to hear it. That matters. But I don't have a shelter or a hotline or a law practice. What would I even do? You'd be part of something bigger than any one of us. We'd all be. Rachel stood and walked to the window. I've worked alone my entire life. I don't know how to collaborate. I don't know how to trust. Neither do I, Catherine admitted, but maybe that's exactly why we should try. We spent the next 6 hours discussing what Theodore's vision could look like. Catherine suggested a legal network, attorneys in every major city who specialized in family law and domestic violence cases, all operating under one umbrella with shared resources. Olivia proposed expanding shelter access, buying properties, creating safe houses, establishing protocols that could be replicated anywhere. Rachel wanted to scale the crisis hotline nationally, with counselors trained to connect callers immediately to local resources. I talked about expanding the foundation's reach, not just helping women leave dangerous situations, but providing career training, education funding, mental health support. And Lily, quiet but determined, said, "What if we created a community, online and in person, where survivors could connect with each other, where they could mentor women who are just starting to leave, where no one has to feel alone?" We all stopped and looked at her.
That's brilliant, Olivia said. It would complete the circle, Catherine added. Legal support, safe housing, immediate crisis intervention, long-term resources, and community. Everything a woman needs to not just escape, but rebuild. Rachel turned from the window. It would take years to build something like this. We have years, I said, and we have each other. We barely know each other. So we learn. I stood and walked to the center of the circle. I'm not asking anyone to pretend we're close. I'm not asking us to be best friends. I'm asking if we're willing to try, to see if we can build something that matters more than our individual pain. Silence settled over the room. Then Olivia stood. I'm in. Catherine hesitated, then nodded. I'm in. Lily looked at me and smiled. I'm in. We all turned to Rachel. She stared at us, conflict written across her face. Then she sighed. I'm going to regret this, but I'm in. That night, after everyone had left, I stood in Theodore's study and looked at the photograph of my mother. We did it, I whispered. We chose each other. And I could almost hear Theodore's voice answering back. I knew you would. The sisters had united, but building an empire was one thing. Learning to trust each other would be the real challenge, and one betrayal was about to test whether they could survive as a family.
The Monroe Alliance, as we named it, launched 6 months later. We'd spent those months building infrastructure, hiring staff, establishing legal entities, and learning to work together. It wasn't easy. 5 strong-willed women with different working styles, different visions, and decades of trauma don't automatically become a functional team. But we tried. Catherine set up the legal network with military precision. Olivia opened 3 new shelters in the first 4 months. Rachel's hotline went national. Lily built the online community from scratch, and it grew to 10,000 members within weeks. I managed the foundation and investments, making sure money flowed where it was needed most. On paper, we were succeeding beyond anyone's expectations, but beneath the surface, tensions were building. The first real crack appeared during a board meeting in month 7. We were discussing expansion priorities. Catherine wanted to focus on legal advocacy, hiring more attorneys, funding more cases. Rachel argued that crisis intervention should come first. If women couldn't get immediate help, legal support later wouldn't matter. We need to meet them at the moment of crisis, Rachel insisted. Everything else is secondary. Legal protection is what keeps them safe long-term, Catherine shot back. And answering a phone call doesn't stop an abuser from tracking someone down. Neither does a restraining order that no one enforces. The room went silent. We're not doing this, I said. We're not fighting over priorities. We agreed to fund all initiatives equally. That was before we saw the numbers, Catherine said. We're spreading ourselves too thin. We need to focus. On what you think is important, Rachel said, because you've decided legal work matters more than crisis intervention. I've decided that we need strategy instead of scattered effort. My work isn't scattered. Enough. Olivia's voice cut through the argument. We're supposed to be family. We're supposed to be working together. Family? Rachel laughed bitterly. We're 5 women who shared DNA with a man who abandoned us. That's not family. The words hung in the air like shrapnel. Catherine stood. If that's how you feel, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe we shouldn't, Rachel agreed. They both walked out. Lily looked at me with tears in her eyes. Is it falling apart already? I found Rachel on the roof of the building, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. You were right, I said. We barely know each other. Maybe this was a mistake. She didn't turn around. I build things alone because when you work with others, they let you down. They leave. They prove you can't trust them.
Is that what's happening, or are you leaving first so it hurts less? She finally looked at me. What? You're sabotaging this, you and Catherine both, because it's easier to fight than to risk actually caring about each other. That's not... Yes, it is. I moved beside her. I did the same thing with my marriage. I saw the problems, saw James pulling away, but I didn't fight because I was terrified that if I really tried and still failed, it would break me. So I let it fail without trying, and that broke me anyway. Rachel's jaw tightened. This isn't about fear. Isn't it? You're angry at Theodore for not being there. We all are. But we're taking it out on each other instead of admitting that we want this to work, that we want to be a family, even if we don't know how. I don't know how to do this, Rachel whispered. I don't know how to let people in. Neither do I. Neither does Catherine. That's why we need to try together, because none of us can figure it out alone. I found Catherine in her office, reviewing contracts with the same intensity she brought to everything. Rachel's scared, I said, without preamble. I know. So are you. Catherine's pen stopped moving. Excuse me? You're scared that if we don't do this perfectly, it'll fail, so you're trying to control everything. But that's not how families work. I wouldn't know. I've never had one. Neither have I, not a real one. But I'm learning that family isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, even when it's messy. Catherine set down her pen. I've spent my entire career building systems that protect people, structure, order, rules. That's how I keep people safe. But we're not your clients, Catherine. We're your sisters, and sometimes we need you to trust us instead of trying to protect us. Her eyes glistened. What if I can't? Then we learn together, all of us. The next morning, I called an emergency meeting, all 5 of us in the library where we first met. We need to talk, really talk, not about strategies or priorities, but about why we're really here. Silence. I'll go first, I took a breath. I'm scared that I'm not enough, that Theodore made a mistake choosing me to lead this, that I'll let all of you down the way everyone else in my life has let me down. Lily spoke next. I'm scared that I'm useless, that I survived something terrible, but I don't have anything real to contribute, that you all just feel sorry for me. Olivia's voice was soft. I'm scared of losing this. I've lost everything before, my home, my family, my sense of self, and now I have sisters, and I'm terrified that I'll do something wrong and you'll all leave. We turned to Catherine. She stared at her hands. I'm scared of caring. I've built my entire life on being invulnerable, on not needing anyone, and now I need you, all of you, and that's terrifying. Finally, Rachel spoke. I'm scared that Theodore was right, that I've been alone by choice, not by circumstance, that I could have had people in my life if I'd let them in, and I'm scared it's too late to learn how. We sat in silence, our vulnerabilities hanging in the air between us. Then Lily said, What if we're all scared together? What if that's okay? And somehow, that made everything feel possible again. The sisters had survived their first real test, but their biggest challenge was yet to come. A threat from the outside was about to force them to choose between protecting themselves and protecting each other.
The threat came 6 months later. Just as the Monroe Alliance was gaining national recognition, an investigative journalist published an article titled "The Monroe Empire Built on Lies." The piece questioned the legitimacy of Theodore's paternity claims, suggested that we'd fabricated our relationship to gain access to his fortune, and implied that the alliance was a tax shelter disguised as charity. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Donors started calling to withdraw funding, partners distanced themselves, the IRS announced an audit, And worst of all, the women we served started questioning whether they could trust us. We gathered at the mansion in emergency session. "We need to release the DNA tests," Catherine said. "Prove the paternity claims are real." "That invites more scrutiny," Rachel countered. "More questions about why Theodore hit us." "We could ignore it," Olivia suggested. "Let our work speak for itself." "Ignoring it makes us look guilty," I said. We were going in circles when Lily spoke up. "What if we tell the whole truth?" she said. "Not just the DNA results, but everything. Why Theodore hit us, why he felt ashamed, why he tried to make it right before he died. What if we stop hiding?" "That makes us vulnerable," Catherine said. "We already are vulnerable," Lily replied. "But being vulnerable and being honest aren't the same as being weak." I looked at her, this young woman who 6 months ago had been terrified to speak at all, and realized she was right. We tell our story, all of it, together. We held another press conference, but this time it was different. No prepared statements, no lawyers controlling the narrative, just 5 women sitting together, telling the truth. Catherine spoke about growing up not knowing who her father was, about building her career on the foundation of abandonment. Olivia described her childhood in poverty, how Theodore's anonymous donations had given her just enough to survive. Rachel admitted her anger, her resentment, her struggle to forgive a man who watched but never reached out. Lily talked about feeling worthless until she learned that someone had seen value in her all along. And I told them about standing on those mansion steps, 2 suitcases and no hope, about Theodore's letter, about learning that the father I'd known wasn't my father at all. "We're not perfect," I concluded. "Our father wasn't perfect, but we're trying to build something that matters, not for recognition, not for profit, because we know what it feels like to be alone and afraid, and we never want another woman to feel that way." The room was silent. Then a reporter in the back stood up. "Are you saying that the Monroe Alliance isn't about Theodore's legacy? It's about yours?" I looked at my sisters. They looked back at me. "Yes," we said together. The story shifted after that. The narrative became less about Theodore's secrets and more about what we were building together. Donations increased, more women reached out. The IRS audit found nothing wrong, and slowly we stopped being Theodore's daughters and became something else. We became the Monroe Sisters. 5 years after that press conference, the Monroe Alliance operates in 43 cities. We've helped over 50,000 women escape dangerous situations. Catherine's legal network has won landmark cases that changed domestic violence law. Olivia's shelters have housed thousands. Rachel's hotline receives over 10,000 calls per week. Lily's online community has 300,000 members. And the Elena Monroe Foundation continues to provide long-term support that helps women not just survive, but thrive. We meet once a month at the mansion. Sometimes we argue, sometimes we disagree, sometimes we drive each other crazy, but we show up for each other, for the women we serve, for the family we chose to build. Tonight I'm standing in Theodore's study, my study, looking at the wall where I've hung 5 photographs, one of each of us. Not the formal photos from our websites or press releases, but candid shots from our monthly dinners. Catherine laughing at something Olivia said, Rachel and Lily huddled over a laptop working on the community platform, all 5 of us around the table, tired but content. A family. Imperfect, complicated, real. On my desk is a letter I've been writing, not to Theodore, I've made my peace with him, but to the woman I used to be, the one who stood on those steps with 2 suitcases and no hope. Dear Isabella, right now you're standing at the edge of losing everything. You think you're broken, you think you'll never be whole again, but you're wrong. You're not broken, you're breaking free. Everything you're about to lose, the house, the money, the life you thought defined you, none of it was real, none of it was yours. What's coming next will terrify you. You'll want to give up. You'll want to hide. You'll question whether you deserve any of it. But here's what I need you to know.
You were always enough. You were always strong enough. You were always worth saving. And you won't be alone. You have sisters you haven't met yet. You have women you haven't helped yet. You have a legacy you haven't built yet. The inheritance Theodore left you wasn't just money or property. It was permission. Permission to take up space. Permission to build something meaningful. Permission to believe that you deserve better than you've been given. So take it, all of it, and build something beautiful. With love, your future self. I fold the letter and place it in Theodore's photo album beside all the pictures he took of me over the years. Then I walk downstairs where my sisters are waiting, where a new group of women were helping or gathering, where the work continues. I don't think about what Theodore would say if he could see us now. I think about what we would say to him. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hoping. Thank you for believing we could do what you couldn't. We found each other. We built a family. We're doing the work. And we're never stopping. The inheritance wasn't just money. It was the permission to be free. And Isabella Monroe, along with her sisters, would spend the rest of their lives passing that permission on to every woman who needed it.